What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Litecoin today. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, you guys. Let's get into it. The purpose of this video is to discuss where I think Litecoin's going to go, not just by the end of this day, but by the end of the week. We're in the beginning of a brand new week, where I think we'll be at the end of the month of January, and then, of course, where I expect we'll be by the end of this move, which I suspect will end in February. If that sounds good to you, hit the like button, subscribe. Let's get started, my friends. Let's go on this little technical analysis journey here. So Litecoin at about $115 right now. You have some descending lows with a flat base. You know what that means, man. I expect that you probably do break to the downside, and that's okay, whatever. Even if you break down there, you go a little bit lower, still a higher low. Nothing to be concerned with. 115 now. You could go all the way to 100, find support right there. Nice psychological level, and then bounce and have a higher price than you saw here, right? I'm not worried about Litecoin at all. The 4 hour does suggest you go down. The price action looks sick itself, so you probably do go down. If we look at the relative low here to the relative high, the most likely area that you'd go to is between about $105 to $109, somewhere in that range, and I suspect you do. You probably do, but that's where your low will be. Now, once you find that low, is it off to the races immediately? Maybe. You never know, right? It could happen. I mean, after all, once you found this low, it basically was. It was basically just like that, and it could happen. You never know. But I would suspect you find your low, you probably meander, and then at a later date, you'll probably move up or something like that, right? However it looks. So assuming today, probably today, if not today and tomorrow, but I think it would just be today, you'll move down to about $108 to $105. That's my expectation. 1 hour time frame agrees. If it's not today, it's today and then the early hours of tomorrow. But then you probably find support there and start working your way back up. Where would you be by the end of the week? Now, that's a bit of a more tricky kind of thought because it depends on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's at 102.6K right now. It could very well be at new all-time highs by the end of the week. And if Bitcoin were at new all-time highs by the end of the week, I don't think that means that Litecoin has to be at new relative highs, but I would suspect it definitely is moving up higher. Let's look at the weekly time frame. Okay, so I have an idea. So here it is. So I think Litecoin by the end of this week will close above 120, but it will close below 140. Okay. Likely somewhere around, it sounds so obvious, somewhere around 130, specifically 131 is my thoughts. But at least above 120 is my expectation, okay? Not a big week for Litecoin, but something productive nonetheless. I suspect that next week and the week after and the weeks preceding that will be the bigger weeks. If I'm wrong, then this week will be bigger for Litecoin. If we see any days close above $138.5, that means that I was wrong. If in the next 5 days and 20 hours we see any days close above this line here at the 886 at 138.55 cents, I was wrong, and that this week is the breakout week. We're probably going to move up to about 170 or higher by the end of the week. But I don't think that's this week. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but time will tell. We'll see how it goes. I want to look at the 3-day time frame. 3-day RSI rejecting the 60 area, it looks like. Kind of not bearish. It's in a bullish posturing, but it's not extremely bullish either. Looking at the daily RSI, I do like the daily RSI's posturing, but it does give a little bit of the room to the downside before you have to move up. So it could suggest to move down today or even tomorrow, but likely today would be my thoughts. So I think that's good for the short-term stuff, right? I think that makes sense. So now let's talk about where I think it's going to be by the end of February. And then we can also talk about where it's going to be by the end of the cycle. Oof. Sorry, guys. Okay. So we're at 115 now. Hit that like button, by the way. Subscribe if you haven't. Thank you all for being here. High to low. You've broken above your 382, got back to your 236, 382, 236. Now you're at your 0.5, finding support at the 382. Your next target area is $203 to $172. That is your golden ratio at the 618 to 697. That's your golden ratio zone. If you look up on the internet, what's the golden ratio? You won't see anything about the 6.9. It's just the 618. But I've expanded upon it a little bit. You normally do find significance a little bit after the 618, if not right on it. But that's beside the point. though that is your next technical target, I have a theory that Litecoin doesn't stop here. My theory is that it stops in this zone between the 318 level and the 253 price level as well, somewhere in that zone where you have relative highs here and relative highs here. It doesn't make as much sense on a monthly, but if you look at it on a weekly, I feel like it would make much more sense. And I love the fibs. You guys know I love the fibs, but man, from a price action perspective, this seems much more significant than the fibs do. Because the fibs, look at that, right? From a price action perspective, you move up here, you're finding resistance at previous areas of resistance and areas of resistance back here, and support and resistance. Like it all makes sense from a price perspective. Whenever you look at it on a fib perspective, the same white lines now, they're in an area where it doesn't really make sense for price in my opinion. I suppose the golden ratio does, but I don't see Litecoin breaking out from here and stopping at the golden ratio. I see it exceeding. I see this move actually being, let me look at the weekly time frame again. I see this next move being bigger than this move was. And this next move, where it's going to end, it's going to end somewhere by the end of February. That's likely going to be, again, bigger than this move would be my thought. So if we're measuring this from a low to a high, I'm not going to measure the overall low here. I want to get the specific move up, right? Because I think it's distinctive, okay? This was kind of a move of its own. This was kind of a move of its own. Yes, this was the low, and you just moved up that whole time, kind of. But I would consider this your move up for all intents and purposes. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, just roll with it, okay? Low here to high here. What I'm getting at is I expect this next move to be bigger. I don't think this, just like I don't think that's the start of your move, I'm not going to measure it from here. Maybe this is the start of your move at last week's low. I don't know. That would take you above your 61869 zone already, right? That would. So if you were to see a move similar to the last move, which already I think you're going to see a stronger move, not a similar move, but a stronger move, it would take you above the 61869 by default. That makes your next target 253. So 253 at a minimum would be the next given target, okay? If you see something stronger, 253 is acceptable, 318 is even acceptable, right? I think that you really, I'm not suspecting that you break $300 on this next move. I'm just saying it's a possibility. And then I like to say this too in moments like this, which is that Litecoin, my friends, is a cryptocurrency. I don't know if you know this, it's a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies do this thing sometimes where they decide to do a 10x in a day. They can do a 5x in a day. You could expect that they're at this price in a month, but instead they're at this price tomorrow, and then they grow to this price over a month. You never know what's going to happen. So if I were to be wrong with my expectations in Litecoin, if I had to be accurate in my guess, I would assume that if I was wrong in assuming this is the range that we go to between about $253 to $318 by the end of February, if not sometime by like the middle of March, if we don't see that within that time frame, then we're only going to see higher prices, is my thoughts. If we don't stop here, it's not going to be lower. In other words, it's only good. If I'm wrong, it's only going to be a good thing, right? If I'm wrong, it's not going to be a bad thing. At least I don't suspect it is. I don't know the future. Anything can happen. This thing could tank. You never know. But I don't think it will. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, just a guy with a cool fireplace. It's actually it's a pretty warm fireplace. And it's not a fireplace. It's actually just a heater. So you can probably hear it. It's just a fake heater. It's not a real fire, but it does a good job of looking like a real fire, at least from the camera. But I'm just a guy talking about his non-fireplace, right? It's not financial advice. That's all I'm trying to say. If we're looking at the longer term stuff, let's go to the monthly stuff, and we'll talk about cycle ending stuff to end the video. First and foremost, okay, Litecoin's been in a multi-cycle consolidation phase. If we look at this consolidation phase and we attach it from the highs, you get this high. Well, that wasn't really a good job, was it? You get this high here. Come on, buddy. There you go. High there to that high there, connecting the highs. If you connect the lows, this low here, connect the lows, maybe to a line of like best fit, something like that, to where you're connecting all these lows. That's about it. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like if this is a pattern to be respected, well, likely we would go up. So Litecoin at the very least doesn't look bearish, right? But I assume, like a lot of coins that have been in a multi-cycle pattern, I assume Litecoin has a date with destiny that results in this thing breaking above its pattern, breaking out to new all-time highs. Beyond the fact that you're in a pattern, a multi-cycle consolidation phase, you've also continued to find support at this very significant high here, right? You dip below it a little bit here, but really after this first initial drop, you found support on it time and time again. You've been finding support consolidating above your all-time highs. Your recent low there, still within this range of the close and the high itself. So all in all, very bullish kind of structure in the chart as a whole. I don't know how anybody, if you're a technical analyst, and you know, if you're a technical analyst and you've been doing this stuff for at least 4 years or more, you probably don't even need that much experience. But if you're bearish on Litecoin, I don't know how. Like, I genuinely don't know how. From $115, it should at least be a fathomable idea that you can move up to 350, or at least, you know, somewhere around there. Let alone the idea that, I mean, just look at what you're doing. You're consolidating at your previous areas of all-time highs. Okay, you've held higher lows cycle after cycle. Okay, you've only got a very large, it's definitely an accumulation phase down here. Okay, this is not a distributive phase, right? That's an accumulative phase right there, and look at what it did. This is likely going to not just take you to the highs here, but break you out. So if you break out, now that I've said all that out of, you know, I've gotten all that out of the way, if you break out, and I assume you do, from a high to a low, the original high to the low, the actual low of this pattern, I would assume you interact with something in this fib range area, right? The primary target zone is defined as the 1272 to the 1618, so that's your primary target zone, but you are allowed to break through that. You could see your secondary target zone, and in fact, a lot of cryptos, I'm sorry, I drew that wrong, it'd be the 2618 to the 1886. I don't think Litecoin sees this price. I don't even think it sees this price, but I accept it as a possibility. If you don't accept that as a possibility, I mean, it's probably not going to happen. So you know, you don't really have anything to worry about. But I'm just saying, 13K is a possibility for Litecoin. It is one of the most accepted coins by merchants in the whole space. Say what you will about it, but it actually has more real world adoption and use than most coins do. Look it up. What coin? How many? Just look up how many merchants Litecoin has. It'll astound you. You probably didn't know that. And then look up how many merchants Ethereum has. Litecoin has access to more merchants than Ethereum does. It's accepted by more merchants than Ethereum is. At least I'm pretty positive it is. Last I checked, unless that changed over the months. But even if it was close, like that should say something in itself. If you don't think 13K is possible, you know, you're just the type of person that will never catch that move, right? The only people that catch 13K, that catch 100x, are the people who believe it's possible. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I do believe it's possible. I accept it as a possibility. But the reason why I don't think it's going to happen is because a move like that, a 100x essentially for Litecoin, be like 111x, would be. I mean, that would put it above $1 trillion, right? I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I guess actually 100x would only be, actually, to be completely fair, 100x would be right below $1 trillion. That's like 116x. That would put it right around. I don't think you go there. It's more of an acceptable possibility than I even thought at first. I don't think Litecoin gets to $1 trillion. I do think it gets to a multi-billion-dollar market cap. Let's get away from this game of playing with the higher limits of the secondary zone. I think that likely you go, if not, again, if you don't stop in your primary zone, you go to your secondary zone, your targets would be anywhere from 4,500 to 6,300. Now, I don't know. I still don't know if Litecoin goes there. I'm a little bit skeptical if it goes there, but I think its market cap capabilities are well within the legal limit, to say the least, right? So a 55x is possible, a 40x is possible, so 37x, 40x is possible. And then at a bare minimum, a truthful minimum, it's not even the minimum target of this primary expected zone, right? I'm going to get rid of all these little white bubbles here, all these blobs, right? It's your primary target zone. I do not accept that as a minimum target, though technically speaking, the 1272 is your minimum target. The reason why I don't accept this 7x from the current price as your minimum target by the end of the cycle is because from a high to a low, that's your first target in a pattern you've been consolidating in for multiple cycles, for years, like almost 10 years, man. It's been a long time. I don't think you're going to break out just to hit your minimum target. So your next target after that might be a doable minimum. Maybe Litecoin, the minimum target would be an 11x from here, but still that doesn't make sense to me, because that would mean that Litecoin's going to underperform the average coin in the market, and I just can't see a coin like this breaking out of a pattern like this underperforming the average coin in the market. Now, I do accept that I could be wrong, that my own opinions don't matter. Maybe $1,000, $1,200 is a nice psychological level. It's enough growth, and it does top off there. I accept it as a possibility, but that's still rather pessimistic. I think that we're getting into realistic, realistic possibilities, probabilities, when we start talking about prices around 2200, which is at about an 18x. And that is about average. That is on par with what we would expect the average altcoin to do from here until the end of the cycle. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I like that. Now, assuming Litecoin outperforms the market, which is possible, the only reason I think it's possible it could is because nobody expects it to. In fact, I would bet most people expect it to underperform the market, which is why I expect it to at the very least, keep up with the market, if not outperform it. But if it outperforms at 4,500, 6,300 is on the table. 13K is a possibility. It's not even on the table yet, though, guys. So don't get too excited yet. We'll see how it goes. That can become a more possibility if we move up to this target in a shorter amount of time, right? If Litecoin proves itself and it moves up, it does some crypto pump type stuff like it did back in its heydays, then okay, then we can talk about higher prices. But until then, let's stay focused. I think out of all the sifting through the dirt, the true zone should be considered to be something between about $2,100 to $6,300 by the end of the cycle. You're at 113 now. The minimum growth would still be at least what I'm expecting as the minimum growth, right? We've already gone over explanations as to why it could be lower, but likely why it's not. The minimum growth is on par with the rest of the market. So that's the minimum target. What about the higher targets, which are very possible? So anyways, that's all I got for you guys. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If the question comes to mind, is it a good time to buy Litecoin? The answer is yes. I think it's fine. But didn't you say it's going to go lower? Yeah, it probably does. I bet if you wait, like if it's nighttime where you're at, I bet if you go to sleep, you wake up tomorrow, it'll be at a lower price. And what's great is if you use limit orders, which if you're a trader or an investor, even if you're new, you should always use limit orders. You should never use market orders. If you're hearing this for the first time, you're like, what's a limit order? What's a market order? Look it up. Only use limit orders. Do not use market orders. They really are. Market orders are only something you should use for like swaps. That's what a swap is essentially, right? Like meme coins, stuff like that. Swaps are even better than market orders actually, but market orders you should just never use. It's not. I don't think it's a good thing. Anyways, I'm getting all distracted here. The best part about setting limit orders is if it is nighttime for you, you could set your limit order to around $110 to $105. It probably goes within that range. Have it hit while you're buying. You're at 113 now. Do you want to play the game? Do you want to wait for it to go down there? Or do you want to just get in and say, screw it, accept that it could go down and then it goes up? I don't know. I don't care. It's up to you. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm just telling you what your options are, right? You can either get in here, you can set some limit orders and get in lower, or if you're waiting too much, perhaps you won't get in at either points, and then you'll have to get in at higher points. So if you want to avoid all that, if you want to avoid all the what if maybes, I can get the low, just screw it, buy here. There's nothing wrong with that. But all that being said, I would assume within the next 8 hours, we probably do see Litecoin below $110. So from here, it's not a crazy discount, but it is a discount nonetheless. So if you know it's going to go lower, why not wait for it? And I do suspect it does. So anyways, not financial advice. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Most importantly, take care of your, I don't know, actually. What would be the most important thing to take care of? Your mental health, probably. Your wife's mental health, probably. There we go. All right, take care, guys. I'll see you on the next.